Hello, and welcome to Morning Hour Chapel's Holy Week video for Thursday. Now, right now, most of us are sitting in our homes as we have been for the past 2 or 3 weeks because of a stay-at-home order from the governor. The hope is that having people stay at home will stem the spread of COVID-19. At first, stay at home was a suggestion, and the hope was that people would voluntarily stay at home. But as time went by and the governor didn't get the desired result, he made the stay-at-home order mandatory for all but a select group who are considered essential workers. I know, this is a somber opening to our video, but the next 3 days on the church calendar are somber days. Today is Maundy Thursday, and it is the day when Jesus commemorated the Passover with his closest friends, the apostles. Maundy Thursday, that's a strange word that's pretty much never used outside of the church, but what does it mean? Maundy is a word that comes from the Latin word mandatum, which means commandment, and it's where we get our English word mandatory. On the night of the Passover, the Bible tells us that Jesus instituted 2 practices. One, the Lord's Supper or communion, and it's still practiced throughout the Christian world today, and pretty regularly. We use bread and wine, or grape juice these days, to represent Christ's body and blood, and we practice communion in remembrance of Jesus' death on the cross. The other practice is one that seems to have fallen out of fashion over the centuries. That one is the practice of foot washing. We read about foot washing in John chapter 13, verses 1 through 17. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." And Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "The one who is bathed does not need to wash, except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you." For he knew who was to betray him. That was why he said, not all of you are clean. When he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them." Now, today in the United States, we don't really see the point of foot washing. We usually wear socks and shoes, and when we don't, we're either at the beach or we're wearing shoes that cause us to be very careful where we put our feet. In Jesus' day, people wore sandals, and there was really no watching where you stepped. Your feet were going to get dirty, either from the dusty ground or from the other things that dropped to the ground as people rode or led animals around everywhere. When someone would come to your house, if you wanted to prove yourself as a hospitable person, you would greet them at the door with a kiss. And you would have a servant, usually the lowest of your servants, wash their feet. This was the ultimate in hospitality, and it was quite pleasant for your guest. Not so much for the servant, who washed all the dust and, well, other things off your guest's nasty feet. Jesus started washing feet. He put himself in the place of the lowest of servants and started washing all the dust and other things off the apostles' nasty feet. And when Jesus got to Peter and knelt to wash his feet, Peter was pretty adamant. "You shall never wash my feet." He was saying, "Whoa, Jesus, this is not a job for the Messiah. Get up already." But when Jesus said, "Okay, Pete, but if I don't wash your feet, you're not with me," Peter changed his tune really quickly. "Lord, not just my feet, but my hands and my head too." Jesus explained to his friends that if he was willing to lower himself to the level of the lowest servant, if he was willing to do the most filthy job in order to show them his love, they should be willing to do the same for each other. Jesus showed them what to do and how to do it, and he expected that they would do what he taught them to do. Now, there are still some churches who do foot washing ceremonies today, mostly on Maundy Thursday during Holy Week. If we weren't under a mandate to stay at home right now, Morning Hour Chapel would likely have had a time of foot washing tonight. But Jesus' example wasn't just about washing feet. Jesus' teaching, his example, was to demonstrate the teaching he had done for the past 3 years. The Master lowered himself to serve his followers, his servants. He did the dirty work because he wanted to demonstrate that humility and servanthood are what we as his followers ought to strive for. We ought to serve others without thinking about ourselves. We ought to be willing to get our hands dirty so that we can care for one another. It's what Jesus ultimately did the next day. He allowed himself to be humiliated, beaten, and crucified so that he could serve God and serve the entire world. And by serving God and serving the entire world, he brings our relationship with God back to what it was always intended to be. Tomorrow is Good Friday. Join us tomorrow as we consider the cross of Jesus Christ. God bless you.